Tofu ceiling at Chaozhou Hospital suddenly collapses. Residents say there's no hope for China. China's rise is over. The Chinese dream has ended. American professor's speech goes viral. On Friday, December 6th, the ceiling suddenly fell in front of the pharmacy in the lobby of the first floor of the outpatient building at the new campus of Chaozhou Central Hospital in Guangdong Province, injuring 4 people. Due to the continuous collapse of the mainland real estate market, the quality of new housing construction has declined in recent years, attracting significant attention. The video shows people seeking medical treatment in the hospital queuing to get medicine when a large piece of the ceiling suddenly fell. 4 people were knocked to the ground as they were unable to avoid it. On Friday night, the Central Hospital of Chaozhou City, Guangdong Province, reported that the cause of the ceiling collapse in front of the pharmacy in the outpatient building's first-floor lobby was workers violating regulations. Among the 4 injured, 1 suffered a broken leg and head trauma. In addition to crowded places such as hospitals and factories, the ceilings of residential buildings in mainland China have also frequently collapsed recently. Sometimes there are no warning signs at all, and the ceilings fall abruptly, catching people off guard. This year, it was reported that before moving into new houses in Guangzhou and Zhuzhou, Hunan, the cement ceilings could be broken with a wooden stick and leaked severely. This has drawn widespread attention online to the sharp decline in construction quality following the real estate market's entry into an ice age under the rule of the Communist Party of China. Mainland netizens commented, "This is simply shoddy construction. A big hole appeared just by poking it with a wooden stick. If the people upstairs stamp their feet, the ceiling will fall down." Many believe China has no hope for a good future as long as the CCP remains in power. China's rise is over. American professor's speech goes viral. China's economic outlook is worsening. The German Chamber of Commerce in China and the British Chamber of Commerce in China both state that the Chinese economy is deteriorating. Not only are Chinese economists pessimistic about the Chinese economy, but American Professor Beckley recently spoke at an international forum in South Korea and discussed the end of China's rise. Currently, this video has been widely circulated by netizens, sparking heated discussions. The official website of the German Chamber of Commerce in China released the 2024/25 Business Confidence Survey report on December 4th. The survey showed that 60% of German companies in China believed the Chinese economy had worsened compared to last year. 56% of German companies identified weak demand in the Chinese market as the biggest business challenge they faced, and 29% expected conditions to continue declining, with confidence hitting a record low. The British Chambers of Commerce in China also released the British Companies in China Business Confidence Survey 2024/2025, which highlighted the profound difficulties and complex opportunities faced by foreign-funded enterprises in China. More than half of the British companies surveyed believed that the business environment in 2024 would be more challenging than the previous year. China's economic and geopolitical trends have clearly attracted significant global attention since the pandemic. A video of Michael Beckley, an associate professor of political science at Tufts University in the United States, speaking in South Korea, recently went viral on the internet. Professor Michael Beckley, an American expert on China studies, said, "We are often told that we live in the Asian century, centered on the ever-rising China. But I think when history is written about the 2020s, they will say that this is the end of China's epic rise." Professor Beckley's speech, titled "The End of China's Growth and the Future Global Order," sparked heated discussion. Epoch Times columnist Wang He stated, "From the Trump administration to the Biden administration, and now to the new Trump administration, a tough policy has been adopted against the CCP, which has completely reversed the CCP's international economic environment. Therefore, under the current policy of the CCP, the Chinese economy has no hope of recovery and the outlook is bleak. In this situation, with such a broad academic background, this professor's speech only summarized the relevant views and presented them in a relatively clear and in-depth manner, which is why it has attracted widespread attention. In fact, everyone feels that he has expressed their own thoughts. Xi'an, a professor at the Aiken School of Business at the University of South Carolina, USA, remarked, "The CCP has repeatedly exaggerated to the world, making it seem as though China is rising. The East is rising. The East will overwhelm the West, and China may surpass the United States. This myth, or the myth of China's rise, has completely ended. This aligns with our observations overseas over the past few years." Xi'an added that this speech did not claim that China's GDP growth was entirely false, but Professor Beckley highlighted that the scale of China's economy might be 20% lower than the official data released by the CCP. Xi'an continued, "Former Chinese Premier Li Keqiang himself did not trust the official economic figures, so he used electricity consumption, freight volume, and loan volume to estimate economic development. Now it seems that foreign and American scholars are also using the Li Keqiang index for estimates, which should be relatively accurate. I think the more critical point is that, in addition to pointing out the recession and reversal of China's economy, this marks the end of the so-called rise of China." Professor Beckley emphasized that China's current debt level not only exceeds that of most developing countries, but even surpasses that of many developed nations. Xi'an noted, he also discussed the impact of China's economic slowdown and decline on the global economy. How are China's resources being depleted? How is China's population crisis worsening? Furthermore, the authoritarian system and governance efficiency of the Chinese Communist Party are also deteriorating. China's military threats, military capabilities, U.S.-China relations, global relations, and diplomatic relations are all facing difficulties. In short, the so-called myth of China's rise has ended, which should now be an indisputable fact. Professor Beckley also mentioned that China's economic slowdown has not only impacted its own society, but has triggered a chain reaction in the global economic system. This phenomenon can be described as a dependency syndrome. The economic growth of many countries is deeply tied to the Chinese market, making them highly dependent on China in areas such as exports, investments, and loans. However, following the decline in Chinese market demand and the reduction or cessation of loans, these countries are beginning to feel reverse pressure. Wang He stated, "China is now the second largest economy in the world, with an economic scale of $18 trillion. What does this mean? China is second only to the US, while the third is Germany, the fourth is Japan, the fifth is India, and the sixth is the United Kingdom. The combined economies of these countries still cannot match China's. If such a large economy suddenly collapses, the impact on the global economy will be enormous. The consequences are difficult to estimate, so all countries must prepare countermeasures in advance." Professor Beckley reviewed the history of great power competition over the past 200 years and pointed out that most of these competitions ended in war. However, he also mentioned that the peaceful resolution of the US-Soviet Cold War provides some hope for the current US-China relations. He predicted that the future direction of US-China relations might depend on internal changes within both countries. Xi Jinping proposed the Chinese Dream in 2012, defining it as the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation, specifically manifested in national prosperity, rejuvenation, and people's happiness. However, under his governance, China today is riddled with issues. The economy is rapidly declining, and people are living in hardship. The former Chinese dream has now transformed into China is poor. Recently, the New York Times reported that a 2014 survey on the wealth perception of the Chinese people showed that 77% of respondents believed they were richer than 5 years earlier. Today, 10 years later, this proportion has dropped to only 39%, indicating a rapid decline in wealth, with 61% of the population heading towards poverty. Song Guocheng, a senior researcher at the Center for International Relations Research at National Chengchi University in Taiwan and an expert on Chinese issues and international strategy, pointed out that the Chinese people now face 10 difficulties: difficulty eating, difficulty dressing, difficulty attending school, difficulty finding jobs, difficulty getting married, difficulty having children, difficulty with housing, difficulty getting medical care, difficulty with elderly care, and difficulty with funeral arrangements. These 10 difficulties cover nearly every stage of life, from cradle to grave. Song Guocheng remarked that China is undergoing a significant historical shift from the Chinese dream to Chinese poverty. He used 8 words to describe China's current economy: deep and incurable. New Tofu construction. Shopping malls and stores collapse in 2 cities on the same day. Tofu projects and buildings have mushroomed under the CCP regime due to rampant corruption among officials and cadres. Corruption permeates from top to bottom, even in the construction sector, leading to the use of substandard materials, steel, and cement. As a result, these constructions are of poor quality, with crumbling walls made of sand, concrete without reinforcement, and buildings that easily collapse during unexpected incidents. Many cases of residential buildings and large traffic bridges collapsing have occurred in mainland China, causing significant loss of life and property. The number of such incidents increases every year, but the CCP regime continues to ignore the problem. Recently, on the same day, shopping malls or shops collapsed in both Chongqing and Chaozhou, Jiangsu. In Chongqing, 1 person was killed and another injured, while fortunately, no casualties were reported in Chaozhou. However, a witness claimed he had narrowly escaped death, passing the site only 2 minutes before the collapse. On the afternoon of September 21st, local time, a netizen in Chongqing posted in an online community that a house collapsed in Gaomiao village, Shapingba, Chongqing, and it was suspected that people were buried. Mainland media later reported that at 8 or 9 a.m. on the 21st, a shop engaged in waterproofing business collapsed in the Lianfang waterproof wholesale market on Xixiao Road, Shapingba District, Chongqing. Several people were buried at the scene of the accident, though the specific casualties were initially unknown. Later that day, the Chongqing Shapingba District Media Center released a statement saying that the interlayer of a store at number 160 Xixiao Road, Shapingba District, had collapsed, trapping 2 people. After rescue efforts, both were sent to the hospital. 1 person died after unsuccessful resuscitation, and the other was injured but not in life-threatening condition. The cause of the collapse is under investigation. On the same day, netizens in Changzhou City, Jiangsu Province posted about a pedestrian corridor on the 2nd floor of Changzhou Tofu Times Square collapsing. Fortunately, it was still early, and there were few people in the mall. No one was passing by at the time, so no casualties occurred. Another eyewitness posted a video of the scene, saying that he had just passed by the corridor when it collapsed. "I was scared to tears. It suddenly collapsed. It was just 2 minutes before and after I passed by the god of death." The netizen also reflected, "At that moment, I realized nothing is more precious than life." That afternoon, Dafeng News, part of the mainland media Huaxiang Daily, reported that the corridor collapse at Tofu Times Square in Zhutown, Zhongluo District, Changzhou City, occurred at around 8 a.m. on the 21st. A passage in the accident scene had been completely destroyed, with pipes spraying water, and the scene was chaotic. A merchant in Tofu Times Square told Dafeng News that the collapsed corridor on the 2nd floor of Futai Times Square was neither affected by the typhoon nor undergoing any shop renovation. It just collapsed. The specific cause is still under investigation. In China, the term tofu dregs, the remnants left after making tofu, is widely used as a metaphor for poor workmanship, meaning that a tofu dreg project refers to a poorly executed endeavor. The term Tofu project was first coined by former Premier Zhu Rongji in 1998, when he remarked during a tour of the Yangtze River flood protection embankments that they were as fragile and spongy as tofu dregs. The term gained national attention after the 2008 Sichuan earthquake, where 20,000 of the nearly 70,000 victims were schoolchildren who died in collapsed school buildings, later shown to have been hastily and carelessly built. In July 2010, anger erupted in the hard-hit Sichuan earthquake area when a building intended as a new home for earthquake victims collapsed just weeks before it was due to be put into use. The prevalence of these tofu projects results from rampant corruption and graft in China. Officials often skim money from projects, leaving insufficient funds for quality materials, qualified staff, and proper workmanship. Additionally, projects are frequently awarded to companies based on political connections rather than qualifications. Due to frequent house collapses and poor quality tofu dreg construction, the mainland media outlet Shanghua News listed 5 warning signs before a building collapse for readers to be aware of. 1. The ground suddenly sinks. Hollows or cracks appear suddenly and increase. 2. Severe cracks develop in load-bearing columns, beams, slabs, or walls. 3. Deformation of load-bearing columns, beams, slabs, or walls, or serious decay or corrosion of wooden components. 4. Large areas of the wall or ceiling suddenly peel or fall off. 5. The building suddenly makes abnormal sounds,